Hello! Thanks for joining me today on Craig's Gun Channel. Today we're going to cover the DL44 Heavy Blaster Pistol manufactured by Blastech Industries. You may recognize this as the favorite sidearm of the infamous Han Solo, the Corellian smuggler. Well, okay, not really. What we're actually going to cover is the Mauser Construction 96, or C96, which is what the fictitious DL44 blaster carried by Harrison Ford in the Star Wars franchise was made from. This firearm was developed in 1894 by three brothers that were employed at Mauser, Joseph, Fidel, and Friedrich Federle. It was patented in 1895 by Mauser and entered production in 1896, hence the name C96. Originally designed to shoot the 7.65 Borchardt cartridge, it was subsequently finalized to utilize a proprietary 7.63 by 25 cartridge. This cartridge used an 86 grain bullet at 1450 feet per second, producing 402 foot-pounds of energy, making it the highest velocity commercially manufactured pistol cartridge until the advent of the .357 Magnum. Eventually, the pistol was also adopted to use other cartridges, including the 9mm and even the .45 ACP. The pistol featured a 5.5-inch barrel with a 10-round, non-detachable magazine in front of the trigger. The resulting pistol is therefore fairly long and weighed in at 2.5 pounds. Continuous design changes occurred throughout the production of the pistol, resulting in a multitude of variants that collectors still debate over. In 1898, a pistol carbine variant was produced which included a detachable wooden stock which also doubled as the holster. This feature became a staple for the firearm ever since then. During the First World War, the need for arms of all types resulted in an order of 150,000 from the German government. The order specified that it utilized the new 9mm cartridge that the German military was adopting. Most of these produced had a red 9 on the grips to denote that it was not the standard 7.63 cartridge, and these are highly sought after today. Following Germany's defeat, the terms of the surrender resulted in restrictions being placed on German arms manufacturers, forcing Mauser to shorten the barrel length and return to the original 7.63 cartridge. The grip was also redesigned and made slightly smaller. This new design found its primary market being Bolshevik Russia, thus the name Bolo was associated with this version. This model was produced through 1930, at which time the original grip design and barrel length was again produced primarily for export, with this model being called the commercial model or M30, and it was produced through the late 1930s when war again engulfed the region. During this time period, versions with increased and even detachable magazines were produced, and there were even select fire versions in the M712 Schnellführer. The devastation of World War II resulted in Mauser's records being destroyed, so we'll never know how many were ultimately produced. However, it's estimated that close to 1 million of these pistols were manufactured, as well as many illegal copies. They ended up retaining a loyal following among many people, from Chinese warlords to Winston Churchill. They've been used in conflicts all over the world, from World War I and II, the Second Boer War, the Boxer Rebellion, many European civil wars, and even as late as the Korean and Vietnam Wars. This is impressive in that overall the gun is overly complicated and cumbersome, both in function and design. With few exceptions of detachable magazines, they relied on awkward reloading procedures, and they have an ungainly shape. While innovative at the time they were developed, it very quickly became obsolete, with much more modern, simpler, and efficient designs replacing it. Today, it's a highly sought-after collectible firearm. The features that ultimately doomed it to the archives of history are what make it so desirable. It's different, and in its own way elegant. Let's take a closer look. First, we'll go ahead and do a safety check. So go ahead and pull the bolt back. As you can see, the chamber's clear and the magazine is clear. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the controls and features of the Mauser C96. It is a single action trigger. We have the hammer here. There's the safety. It's currently on fire. There should be a little F right there. This one, it's been wore off just due to just age. If you lift it, that puts it on safe, and there's a little S there. This is the bolt, and those are the knurled edges that you use to grip the bolt. That's how you would charge the weapon. There's the slide. It has a tangent rear sight. is a internal magazine. And go ahead and take it off safe. It does lock open on the last round. Those notches there would be for a stripper clip. When you put the stripper clip in to charge the magazine, the stripper clip will push down on the floor plate, and then the stripper clip itself locks the bolt back. And then you push the ammunition down into the magazine. When you pull the stripper clip out, it would release the bolt, and then you could cock it back to load a round. In the absence of that, to unlock the bolt, you have to push down on the magazine floor plate, or the follower, and so you pull back slightly on the bolt, then push down, and don't let go of the bolt. Just gently let it go forward, and then you can release. If you're not careful doing that, it's a good way to smash your finger up pretty good, so you want to be careful with that. The safety, the way that functions, and when you pull the trigger, I'm going to hold it and let it go slow. The safety actually keeps the hammer from hitting the firing pin, which is right there. And then if you notice, if you put it on fire, then the hammer goes all the way forward and it can hit the firing pin. Firing pin itself is right there, and that's what the hammer would then hit. The momentum would then push the firing pin and to ignite the primer in the cartridge. So for disassembly of the C96 is not for the faint of heart. I'll show you why in just a second. First of all, a couple things. That is the unlocking, or the disassembly latch. You would lift up on that to unlock it. This notch here is what the shoulder stock would slide and lock into. So the first step for disassembly would be to remove the firing pin. And if you notice, there's a little slot there. So you can use a small screwdriver, and you would push in and then rotate clockwise. And then you can remove the firing pin. It does have a rebound spring on the end. And the next step would be to remove the magazine floor plate. There's a little button there that unlocks the floor plate. You just push in on that. You can move the floor plate forward, and then you can take it off and take out the spring and the magazine follower. The spring actually goes into the floor plate to hold it in place, so when you put it together, it kind of goes in like a unit like that. You want to make sure the hammer is cocked back and the safety is off. You lift up on that latch. Of course, the easiest way to do this is to set the gun down on the top of the slide, then you'll be pushing down on that latch. And then you can quite simply remove the frame off the slide of the firearm. This is your fire control system, and it goes together like a puzzle. It can only go together one way. However, basically what happens is once you take this off, it's not unusual for parts to just kind of fall off of it. Go ahead and point some parts out here. This piece here, that's the disassembly latch. We have the safety, which now you can pivot up and you can take out. This whole section, though, is at this point locked in place because the barrel is locked in. Basically what you do is you just grip a hold of it, lift up, and it pops off. This is the lock piece that locks the barrel and the bolt. At this point, you still have the recoil spring, and this is the disassembly part for that. You have to take the firing pin out first because it goes through this piece, but basically you'll just push forward on that and then you can lift it out. So you push forward, and then you can lift out. The recoil spring at this point would actually be able to come out like so. Take out the bolt. That leaves the barrel assembly. The barrel and the slide are an integral unit. It's all one piece. You have the rear tangent sight. That can also be removed. However, we're just going to leave that on there for now. Theoretically, this would be how you would just disassemble it for field strip purposes. So as far as the frame itself, you would want to, the only thing left in there is the trigger. You can leave that in there. Just clean everything out, wipe it all down. And that's really as far as you would generally want to, take this apart. The bolt itself, that's the extractor right there. You'd want to clean the breech face, clean everything down, wipe everything down. That's basically what you want to do with all this, is just wipe it all down and clean it all up. This whole piece here, this all comes apart. So this right here is our sear. This would be the disconnector. And there again, all these parts come out. If you pull the hammer back, this would come up. You pivot that out, remove that. This is as far as you generally want to take it. This wishbone spring is attached to a pin that goes through, and that's actually what holds the hammer in place. You can see the coils of the spring there, the hammer spring. The hammer spring, to remove that if you needed to, that little indentation right there, you would push in on that, and you could use the metal edge of a screwdriver to push in. When you push in, this little piece here, which is the little retaining or lock piece for that, will come out, and it would lift straight out, and then the hammer spring assembly can slide out the front. There's not really any reason to do that unless it's damaged, so you wouldn't do that in the normal course of field strip and maintenance. So basically just clean off everything, wipe it all down, and then you have to start putting it back together. So it looks intimidating. It really isn't, and in a lot of ways it's like I said, it's kind of like a puzzle. So here, I'll show you what I did there. You have the sear, and it's got that little lip right there, which goes into a little recess right in here. So you would put it on like this, and then you can pivot it, and that little lip goes under the recess, and then that holds it in place. And then pull the hammer back, and then you can push the sear all the way down like that. The disconnector, that little circle goes into the matching hole there. And just push up on the wishbone spring a little bit. And then that holds that in place. And then basically that pivots like so. The safety, it has like a key type shape, and then there's like a keyhole shape. You can put that in place. That just goes like that. So once that's in place, the disassembly catch, you notice that little hemispherical, moon type shape. You put that piece in first, and that actually engages, see it came through there, that part of the wishbone spring, and that's what provides the spring tension for the takedown latch. So, for reassembly, we'll go ahead and first put the bolt back in. This is the locking piece for the bolt. If you notice these little ridges on the bolt, those engage the recesses and everything on this, and that's what locks it in place. So there's a round little portion there, and if you notice right here, There's a little indentation, and that goes in front of that and right there. And if you notice then, when the bolt goes back and forth, that goes up and down. So when that's held down, that's what locks it in place. So then we take our little assembly that we have here. This section right here engages into right there on the locking piece. This little section here will actually engage right into here. And basically, you kind of put it in place and you push down until you hear it click, and then that's locked in place. You take your slide, put it back in its recesses, and slide it over everything until it locks in place. And that's the main portion of the firearm is now reassembled. Now you can put in your recoil spring. And now comes a little bit of a tricky part. This assembly has to go into that hole. The spring has to be pushed in front of it. So use a handy dandy tool. I use these little skewer things for just about everything. You can basically, I don't know if you can see this, but push the spring forward so you can put this in. And then pull it out and push down, and that'll go back into place. Take your firing pin. That slides through the middle of that spring, and it only goes in one way. Then push in, turn it counterclockwise. That locks that back into place. Get your magazine follower and spring and floor plate, put it in, push that down against the pin and slide it back. And we're now reassembled. Thanks for joining me today, and I would ask you to subscribe so you don't miss anything, and until next week, stay safe.